Harley-Davidson is cutting prices, but is it too late? That's what we're discussing in today's video and why many of you may not care. Now, you may have seen another video or two on this topic. I watched one of them, and one of the questions raised in that video by Marvel Kid was, why is Harley-Davidson doing this? The motivation. Well, I have a theory on that because I've been paying really close attention to the prices for several years now. Every year when Harley-Davidson does their January launch, I record the MSRP prices at the time of launch. Occasionally, they'll reduce prices mid-year or increase them mid-year on a few models here and there. Usually not anything too drastic and not usually across all models. But there has been a trend to reduce pricing on the Revolution Max models like the Nightster and the Nightster Special and the Sportster S since 2023. So at the time of the launch in January, the Nightster was $10,499.99. I recorded it as $10,500. I'm gonna round up. That dollar really doesn't matter to me. I know they like to say they're under this. It's like now that they've slashed the price on the Nightster, it's under $10,000, $9,999. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy they slashed the prices. It's a trend that, like I said, they've been doing the last few years. The one Revolution Max model that has not had the prices cut, but has stayed flat is the Pan America. It has stayed consistently at $20,000 for the Pan America Special for the last several years. Now, it's nice that it hasn't had a price increase, but they've not dropped the price on it. So what we're gonna be talking about really is the price cut on the Nightster Special, and the Sportster S, and how those have come down in price the last few years and why. Now in 2023, the Nightster was released and it was priced at $13,500. The Nightster Special was at $15,000 and the Sportster S was at $16,400. Now in 2024, the Nightster went to $12,000. That's a $1,500 price decrease. That's great. And the Nightster Special went down $1,500 to $13,500. The Sportster S went up to $17,000. Obviously didn't work out because in 2025, they dropped that back down to $16,000, the lowest it's been in the last few years. The Nightster Special dropped from $13,500 to $12,500. And the Nightster dropped from $12,500 to $10,500 and now down to $10,000. Now, if you did not know, Harley-Davidson announced that the 2025 model Revolution Max models like the Pan America, the Nightster, the Sportster S, all those we're talking about, would be made in Thailand for 2025. Supposedly this is a temporary thing just for 2025. At least that's the way it was led to believe when they announced this several months ago. I did a video on it. I was not thrilled that this is happening. I mean, until now, as far as I know, Harley-Davidson has always built motorcycles in North America that were sold in North America. Yes, for Australia and other countries, a lot of them are made in Thailand and have been for the last few years, maybe several years, depending on how you want to look at it. I think the plant in Thailand opened up in 2020, 2019, something like that. Essentially, Harley-Davidson announced they were closing the plant in Kansas City in 2018 and shut it down in 2019, and they said all that production was going to move to York plant. None of it was going to Thailand, but they were opening up a plant in Thailand to deal with tariffs for importing into other countries. Well, Harley-Davidson CEO said bikes built in America to be sold in North America, it was going to stay that way, and now it's not. And when I did my video on this, I said the only way Harley-Davidson consumers are going to be okay with this is if Harley-Davidson passes that cost savings from producing them overseas on to customers with a price reduction. And that's what they've done on all of the models except for the Pan America. They've reduced the price. So, one for me. Now, does that make it okay? Well, I don't know if it makes it okay, but it makes it easier to swallow. We didn't just, pricing didn't just stay level, and they didn't just pass the buck and put more money in their pocket. They did pass some savings on to consumers. And a lot of people didn't seem to care because this wasn't a bike they were going to buy anyway. It doesn't speak to the core Harley-Davidson enthusiast, in my opinion. Who do these bikes speak to? New riders, riders who are new to the Harley-Davidson brand, riders who are not traditional core riders already buying and shopping in the Harley-Davidson market. That's why many of you are not going to care about this. But I do think that it is important, and I think this is a good move by Harley-Davidson. And I'm going to explain why, and why I think they are doing this. So they killed the traditional Sportster a few years ago. It won't meet EPA regulations in several countries and things like that, and it was going to be cost prohibitive to upgrade that motor in a way that would meet these environmental regulations and emission regulations in other countries, and probably here in the US, if not already, California. That stuff is getting tougher and tougher all the time. That's why the EPA is coming after tuners and pipe manufacturers and all that crap anyway. I'm hoping that'll change with a change in the government. We'll see. I don't know how that'll work out, but I can always hope and pray. But the fact is, since the Sportster was canceled, the traditional Sportster, Harley-Davidson has been losing market share in the mid-size segment to Indian and other manufacturers. Let's be honest. I mean, the Indian Scout's a pretty good looking motorcycle. I rode one several years ago and it was fun. I really liked it. We looked at it before Firecracker bought her Sport Glide, and it was probably a feasible solution for her, but she just wanted to stay with Harley-Davidson, and once she found the Sport Glide, that was it. There was no debating after that. She just hadn't found the right Harley-Davidson yet. I have a friend that rides a Scout. I think they're great bikes. And the Scout 60, guess where it's priced at? $9,999. You know who else has a mid-size cruiser in this price range? Honda. The Honda Rebel 1100 starts at $9,599. All right, guys, I want to thank Beyond Riders for sponsoring today's video. I've been wearing their gear for a couple years now. They've been supporting the channel. They make Kevlar-lined armored riding gear like mesh shirts, soft shell jackets, hoodies. They just came out with a new line for hoodies, including high visibility orange and green. I'm thinking maybe the orange because that's a Harley color, and I kind of like high visibility orange, especially at night. So I might be checking out one of those. They make Kevlar lined cargo pants style pants and jeans, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you check out their website if that's something you're maybe considering purchasing, and use my link in the description down below to save yourself a few dollars on your next purchase from Beyond Riders. And again, thank you for supporting the channel. So Harley-Davidson needs a competitor in this $10,000 market area. That they need something there to compete with the Rebel 1100 and the Scout 60, and I think the Nightster does that. For people who are interested in those motorcycles, Harley-Davidson has an alternative. This is liquid cooled just like those motorcycles, V-twin just like those motorcycles. In fact, let's look at some of the specs on those motorcycles. Seat height on the Nightster is 27 inches. The Rebel, 27.5. The Scout, it gets down to 25.6. Gas tanks, 3 to 3.5 gallons on all of them, depending on which model, but they're all pretty comparable. Getting about 50 miles to the gallon. Front suspension travel on the Nightster is 5 inches, rear is 3. The Rebel's a little better with 6.5 in the front and 3.7 in the rear, but the Scout, it needs a little work. 4.7 in the front, but only 2 in the rear. The Rebel and the Nightster both come in right at 487 pounds. The Scout's a little over 500. Now the Nightster is 975 cc's. The Rebel 1100 is, of course, 1100 cc's. And the Scout comes in right at 999 cc's. Now the Scout and the Rebel both have 85 horsepower, but the Nightster comes in at 91 horsepower. Torque on the Nightster and the Rebel are at 72 foot-pounds, and the Scout's, I think, around 65. When you look at horsepower per pound, the Nightster actually comes out ahead of all of them. Has rider safety aids, has sport mode, rain mode, and stuff just like the Rebel 1100. They're really competing with these bikes, with these features and functionality, and price now. And I think that is what is important for Harley-Davidson and why they've done the price cut. And I think the interest in the Nightster is finally starting to pick up. Content creators like Cruzy Originals, who's making parts for it, I think FXR Division made an intake for it, and Cruzy made a slip-on. And they did a video where they got a guy to tune a 2024 or 2023 model, and he was able to do some magic with the tune, and they got 119 horsepower at the rear wheel on a dyno. I mean, that is pretty impressive for a 487-pound motorcycle. Now, They even talk about it is a stunt bike comparable to the Dynas and stuff. Now, I have a 2000 FXDX sitting around here, and I mean, let's be honest, my FXDX was $13,000 new in 2000. I didn't buy it new, but that's what the list price was at. It has good suspension comparable to the Nightster, but the horsepower wasn't as good. No safety stuff like traction control or ABS, no rider modes. It's carbureted. Some people probably see that as a plus. 600 pounds and less power and costs more. So, I mean, the Nightster in a lot of ways is probably a better value than like my Dyna was when it was new. Now, I picked that up for $4,000. I don't know that you're going to pick a Nightster up used that price yet, but in a few years, you might even pick one up for $8,000 or $9,000 that's been sitting around at a dealer that they can't sell, that's a couple years old or low mileage to trade in. Now, that's my opinion why Harley Davidson is slashing the prices on the Revolution Max motors. For one, they're not selling that well. There hasn't been that much interest in them, and they need to get down into this price range to be more competitive with the other motorcycles that people who would consider these bikes are also shopping for, like the Scout and the Rebel. I hope Harley Davidson has success with them. I've even thought about doing more than just a demo ride on a Nightster if I get the opportunity. Do you guys think that would be cool? Would you like to see us spend a couple of hours on a Nightster and see what one is really like when you get to spend a little more time on it than a 10-minute demo ride and see what I think of it? If so, leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. All right, guys, leave me your opinion. What do you think about Harley Davidson doing price cuts on Revolution Max? Am I right? Do you not care? Do you think this is a good thing when you look at it from the perspective of trying to stay competitive with some of the other bikes that people are shopping for in the mid-size market? A market basically that is wide open now that the traditional Sportster's gone and they're losing sales. So what do they got to do to stop that bleeding? And don't just tell me to bring the Sportster back, because I'm afraid that's just not going to happen unless somebody can really get a change in direction on the way the EPA and emissions regulations are headed. All right, y'all stay safe. Keep on riding. We'll see you in the next one.